I think that this is a very um, this is very germane, and probably this is what also sets apart coaching um, as a as a growth modality vis-a-vis some of the other ways of growth that any any individual might look into, right? Uh, so there are few things that come to me very saliently. We will talk about that. I do have a pack of slides, and then I would invite you to work with me through them, right? So if you typically see what are we trying to achieve today is, I hope my screen is visible to all of you.
Yeah.
All right. So if you typically see what are we trying to do is, why is partnering, when we talk about facilitating client growth, one key word that keeps on coming up again and again throughout the uh, six odd or seven odd sub parameters of this competency is the idea of partnering, right? And also, ICF for the first time has inculcated in the 2025 version element on integrating client growth. And what does it mean, right? It has kind of, it was not there at all before, and we will see. They have kind of brought that in. And as a coach, therefore, it is also important for us to understand what kind of growth does the client want? What is the idea of growth for the client? Does the client want to solve a problem? Does the client want to impact the environment? Does the client want to reflect? Does the client want to, what Leon Vanderpool and others would call, is it transactional coaching? Is it transformational coaching? Is it developmental coaching, right? And then what are the modalities, irrespective of the depth of that idea of growth that the client has? What is it that we can probably offer back to the client to see that they experience a continuous sense of growth, and coaching becomes more of a growth journey or a process rather than just a even conversation event, right? That you have one conversation, and then you have a hiatus, one or two actions here or there, and then you have another conversation, and then you have another conversation. So how do you kind of weave the growth story across the conversations, and it becomes a contiguous journey rather than just uh, a event-based exercise? I think these are going to be my focus areas. Anything else that, I mean, all of you are esteemed coaches, you have had an opportunity to look at the competencies. Anything that you feel is that we should also focus on, feel free to bring in and talk about it, right? So if we look at it, right, it's a very simple definition: partners with the client to transform learning and insight into action, promotes client autonomy in the coaching process. Now, as I always do, probably you might want to look into this definition and see what sticks out to you or what stands out for you. And what do you think we as coaches, who as we need to be so that we can facilitate this process? What sticks out to you? Some of the keywords that ring a bell, what are those?
I think one of the keywords that really stays with me when I talk about client the growth for client. It's client-centered coaching. So we're looking at what the client really needs in that moment. What are they looking for? What is the goal for them? What looks like possibilities for them, and what is it that therefore they want to do with the time that will be utilized. So yeah, looking at it from the client-centered standpoint.
Yeah, that that according to me is also a very important piece. And if I look at it, for me, the key word that stands out is what I would call as, um, just give me a moment, what I would call as the autonomy, right? The autonomy of the client, right? So the autonomy of the client is one thing that really stands out for me. Okay, um, which you are talking about in a big way, because the client autonomy, we may want to, we may see a great possibility of going deeper, going wider, doing a lot of things, but it is the client's conversation, and that is where, along with this word autonomy, is the word partners, right? And I think the word partner is uh, very thoughtfully placed here, right? Very thoughtfully placed here vis-a-vis the word autonomy.
I don't
What do
know
you
if it is just me, but the slide is not moving.
Yeah, I
It
was
is not
about to
moving.
say
It is
that.
not
Yeah.
moving. It is not moving. I've kept it there,
Okay.
right? I've kept
It,
it there.
it's at facilitating client growth.
Yeah, facilitating client growth. And I'm talking about these two words. One is the word partners, right? And the other is the word autonomy. Can you see the stroke of my pen?
No,
No, we
we
can't.
slide number 1.
Yeah, you can't
Not
see the stroke of my pen.
no. We are on slide number 1, Ravi.
Yeah, that's fine. But you can see the stroke of my pen, right? I mean, the red underlining and all.
No, no.
No? Okay. Interesting. So just a second. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So this is what I'm saying. These two words, right? The word partnering and autonomy. So what does the coach do? The coach acts like a partner, right? And this is where probably the modalities change. Um, Coaching is equal to equal relationship, right? It is not mentoring where the mentor knows more or is held in a higher, pedestal of respect. It is not teaching. It is not consulting where the client decides everything, right? The the consultant plays a slightly subsidiary kind of a role, right? The word partnering and the word autonomy go very hand in hand, and this is where the bind for the coach lies, that you cannot overdo it, and yet at the same time you cannot underdo it. So what is the scale on which the coach has to perform? What is the objective of the coach? What is the scale? How does the coach balance to say that it is partnering and it does not become mentoring or does not become teaching? At the same time, it does not become order taking. Think about it. Dr. Neera, Aishwarya, Shweta. For me, that is in many ways sets the agenda as to what do we try to do here, right? What do we try to do here? And how does this particular competency take the conversation with the client beyond the immediate realm of a particular event to a larger process of learning, right? To a larger process of learning. So, what do we do here? Where does the balance hinge? what is the net
I
effort
would
of
say
a coach?
again, it's a client autonomy. The minute we try to lead, I think
Hmm,
that's when uh, something this coaching hat changes.
hmm, hmm. And yet we have to create something, right? Yet we have to help the client see a reality which is beyond the immediate.
Yeah.
We have to invite the client to move beyond just the present. What do we do here?
I actually wanted to bring up a slightly different point
Sure, sure. Feel
for
free.
all of us to kind of think through.
Hmm,
When we're saying what is it that we want to do here because we have to take them beyond,
ah,
um, I'm questioning whether that has to be a necessity.
agree. And whose
Uh,
necessity is it?
and the reason I'm asking that question is because I'm leaning on an
Hmm,
experience of a conversation
hmm,
where in my head I felt that there is a possibility for the client to move to something further.
hmm,
And I positioned it as a question and checked. And the
hmm,
answer I got back was that no, that is not what the person is seeking.
hmm,
The person is good with where they have got to based on how the conversation flowed. They
hmm,
have got the unlock and the answer to what they were seeking. And
hmm,
beyond that, there was no need felt.
hmm,
So for me, it was a message to myself to say, okay, you don't always have to or essentially need to operate with that hat in mind that I must be facilitating
exactly,
client growth.
exactly. So, what is growth? That brings us to a very important question. What is growth? Growth from whose perspective, right? And what does the word transform mean, right? So, there are so many of these elements that are there. For me, what you got, Neera,
Yeah,
and, is an insight into the client,
that's right.
that the client wants to go thus far and not further, or this is what the client wants,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So this is the learning and the insight. I mean, if I were to use what is the lens through which we look at the client growth or transformation, we look at it through this insightful thinking. And it is an insight not only for the client as to where they want to go, but it is also an insight for us, whether it is we have almost taken control of the conversation, hijacked the agenda in a certain way, or co opted the agenda, and we want the client to move in a direction that we think
Uh,
is, is in our head. In our
yeah,
head, we can drop an anchor and we can move them forward.
yeah, and I think a lot of times it doesn't essentially have to be about co-opting for the agenda. I
Mm,
think it's probably just picking up what are the pointers you're feeling in that moment
mm,
and then bringing them forward with the client. And I think my learning in this specific situation was about tying this in with just being in the moment with whatever is okay for the client.
mm,
So while we talk about this in context of growth, it was also about just being with what they want
mm,
and respecting that.
mm.
So, I mean, in some ways, it also connects back with some of the other competencies.
It does.
So I hear you when you say that there could be a risk of co-opting or hijacking, which is, I think, something we always need to be aware of.
Yeah.
But in this specific situation, my learning was that if I'm hearing something, it was okay to go check. But it is also okay to hear from the client that that's okay, that's what they are expecting and not more. And they
Right.
don't need the feel the need to explore further.
Right. Right. And one of the things that I have seen, probably important to underscore, is that this being probably competency number 8, it's not something that sequentially has to happen at the very end um, when we are trying to probably give a shape to what's next, right? It can happen across the conversation, throughout the conversation, in trying to understand where is the client now, where does the client want to go from here, right? Right from the beginning to the end. And that's why, if you look at it, um, some of the elements that are there is to look at the fact that the client gets support from us in terms of designing goals, in terms of deciding methods of accountability, in terms of designing the actions they will take, right? Uh, it is also helping the client to envisage why go there, what what awaits you there, what does there look like, what are the milestones going to be, right? In many ways, this is an overarching competency which encapsulates a lot of the other skills that we possess. And when we do that, I mean, be that maintaining presence, be that listening, etc., that we do that, or curious questioning, that is the time that we kind of uh, do this act of partnering, right? And for me, that remains a very critical component. Now, if you see, 8.7 did not exist before. This is the new addition in the 2025 version, right? Partners with the client to integrate learning and sustain progress throughout the coaching engagement. And for me, this is what makes very overtly clear that coaching is not just about this conversation in the here and now with the client. It is also the objective of the coaching process to help the client continuously evolve between the conversations by sustaining progress. And the conversation in itself is an engagement which designs that system, or which designs that process which integrates the growth, right? And in order to help that, uh, the word celebrate has been replaced by the word acknowledge. Right?
Ravi, I'm sorry, once again,
The
we are
slide is
on
not moving.
slide 3, but I think you're referring to some other slide because we can't
Yeah,
see the word celebrate, etc.
yeah, I'll just try and move this again. Interesting things are happening. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yeah, yeah, now we can see. Do you want to put it on slide mode? Maybe
It is
that
on
will.
slide mode.
It
It
is
is
not
on
on
slide.
slide mode. It's on your PPT mode. So can you see the button on the right, which looks like a cup holder?
Okay, hold on for a moment.
Yeah.
I am doing it on the slide mode. That is why it is
Okay. So
right.
I,
So let
does everybody see
share
the
my
slide
entire
mode?
screen.
No.
Let me share
No,
my
I
entire
think
screen.
Yeah.
Can you see my entire screen now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, so now you see the slides, right?
Yeah, go
Now
on.
you see me going on the.
Okay. Now it's on slide
Now
mode.
it's on slide mode. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So
Okay.
if you see, 8.7 has got introduced. Okay. 8.7 wasn't there before. Okay. Now, what does 8.7 mean? And as I was saying, 8.7 for me, it tells me that, it not that it did not, probably it was implicit then, and it is explicit now, that coaching is an overarching process. If I have a 6-month coaching engagement with a client, it is the entirety of those 6 months and not just those 6 conversations when I am with the client. I'm with the client for the entirety of those 6 months. And in those 6 months, what happens? That gets rechecked, revisited, acknowledged, reinvigorated, designed, sustained in those 6 or 8 or 9 conversations that we may have. Or sometimes maybe, and I don't know, all of you are very, all of you are extremely experienced coaches. There are many a times my coaches reach out to me between these conversations also, right? For a quick 5-minute catch up or a 10-minute catch up, to just report out, just to kind of gain confidence. Sometimes I tell them that and maybe just one question gets asked, or maybe one reaffirmation gets given, and then they are on their way. So this process of integration of learning as a sustained progress is something that is getting called out very explicitly now, right? I'm not saying that it is urging all of us to have conversations in between, but it is asking us to definitely design the experience in a way so that there is progress happening throughout. Not just, 10 minutes before the conversation, the client sits down and thinks about what I have done, where I am going, and kind of comes across and reports. And during the conversation, we kind of generate those aha moments, right? So there is a lot of emphasis on us coaches to design that experience for the client. And this is new. Okay. The other thing is, we are asked to acknowledge the client's progress and success. So acknowledge could mean celebrating small victories. Acknowledge could mean uh, also letting the client know that the progress has not been as much as probably the client would have envisaged it to be. So making call outs. For me, acknowledge is a much more of a value neutral term than just saying celebrates client's progress, right? And this is something that is even very well highlighted in the ICF video that has come out explaining the changes in this competency, right? So I want to invite your thoughts and suggestions on 8.7 and 8.8, apart from anything else that you want to talk about. What does it mean to you to integrate the learning and acknowledge?
I think in simple terms to me, when I think of integrating the learning, it's really more in context of where we started out and who the client is becoming as part of this journey. What are the realizations? What is the awareness? What's the shift? And how is that shift working for the individual?
I want to go back to, there are these 5 principles that appreciative inquiry usually gives. And one of them is anticipatory principle, which says that the image of the future becomes the future for the individual. So it's like, it's like saying what your reality is first created in your mind and then in the reality. So looking at what is the reality that the client is wanting to create, and therefore, what is the future that the client is building for themselves? What does it look like for them? And then going ahead and checking back with them on a regular basis. I think that's what really means when we say that integrating uh, and sustaining, integrating learning and sustaining progress throughout the coaching conversation. So looking at the imagery that the client is really creating and wanting for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, what is the client, if I may loosely use the term, manifests for himself as going to happen, right? So if you typically see, here is where I think a lot of this conversation was preempted by what Meera was saying. Where do we want? I mean, and this is that shift in being thing from Leon Vanderpoel. This is his diagram. That uh, is coaching just transactional? Does coaching always need to be transformational? Uh, you know, if we are doing it as an MCC coach, does it necessarily have to be transformational? If an ACC coach is doing, will it be therefore just transactional? Now, my submission is this, that for the client, the coach is a coach. Whether he's an ACC coach, MCC coach, PCC coach, or does not probably even have one of those, few of those letters behind their name, that does not matter. What matters is, what does the client want to take away? What does the client want to take away? Now, that should not be limited by the horizon of the coach. What I mean is, the coach wants to create transformation. Therefore, the client has to transform. No, nothing like that. The client wants 3 suggestions. How can he or she manage time better? That is what it is. The key question that we may ask is, how will that impact the other parts of life? Or who will the client become in that process? Those are important elements, right? But the key remains that the road to that, who will that client becomes, is through gathering or garnering for himself 3 things that the client is going to do, or the 2 actions that the client is designing for themselves to manage time better. Say I'm giving time management as a theme for a coaching conversation. Now, the idea of time as a continuum, where will time be, what time has been, all of these are modalities that a coach has. And sometimes, allow me to make a tongue-in-cheek comment here, we get lost in these trees, right? The conversation, unknowingly, the ground beneath the feet has shifted, and it becomes somewhere a conversation that is driven by us. It is our curiosity which is kind of getting foisted upon the client. Therefore, it is very important for us. And one of the barometers that I have seen, one of the indicators I have seen helping me, is the language the client is speaking. What is the language? If I hear the client speaking a language of compliance, I have to do this, I need to do this, otherwise something will go wrong. It is an invitation for us to explore a little more, to see how probably the language can shift, or if at all it can shift. If the client is already speaking a language of commitment, that I feel there is a need for me to find out these 3 ways, so be it. Right? Because when we go through, when we go through the coach training programs, or when we are on our own evolution path, we tend to anchor ourselves in our own curse of knowledge, right? That we want to generate greater value for the client, right? But what is the value, like you guys have very well underscored, is always decided by the client, right? So the agency of the coach is limited to what the client wants. Which of these circles or which of these intersections does the client want to reside in, right? That is my submission. Now, as a coach, we should be capable of taking the client wherever they want to go. That is why probably these levels exist for us. I mean, we should be ready to keep on oscillating between transformational to transactional all the time. It is not a hierarchy of value that transaction is of lower value, transformation is of higher value, right? There is sometimes, and I mean, I can vouch for myself in my own mind, maybe a couple of years ago when I was reading about ontological coaching or transformational coaching, transformation seemed to be so how should I call it? Transformation seemed to be so energizing, so to be there kind of a thing. What the hell have I been doing this transactional coaching for so long, right? But believe me, in that instance, I was generating value. So be it. But today, I am capable probably, or I think I should be capable of doing transformational as well as transactional. I can offer if I were to say, I can offer a greater spread of the buffet to my client and ask them to pick up what they want to pick up. And that is the agency that I bring in, right? I'm not just giving them a handful of things. I'm giving them an entire buffet, right? And that is where our ability lies. Okay, because when we read through a lot of literature on coaching, there is this hierarchical. It is not a horizontal plane like the way it is looking. It is rather a vertically joined plane, and it will look like as if coaching continuum transactional comes somewhere low, and transformational is a higher calling. Well, whatever is the calling for the client, that is the calling that we are in. Invite your comments, thoughts, congruence, incongruence.
One, I think, important thing to look at, Ravi, is the fact that what do we define transformational? Like, the moment we are saying that this is transformational, but this is transactional, you're already having a judgment around what looks like transformation.
Exactly.
And I don't know whether this is really a transformation at all. Because
Right.
then you are looking at the definition of transformation from your standpoint, not looking at what the client has felt, integrated, etc., in their moment of experience with you.
You're right. You're right. And that is where I bring in the DILTS thing to understand. Right. And when you look at the DILTS thing, again, the danger or the caveat is, the warning is, even if it is a shift that is supposed to happen at a capability level, it is no less worthy a shift vis-a-vis if it is a shift that is to happen at the identity level. I'm assuming all of you have a nodding acquaintance of this model of, change, of personal change, right? Shweta, all of you, I'm expecting all of you to have an understanding of this, right? So just because, say, for example, even if it is a change at the, are you seeing my slide move now?
It's a DILT pyramid.
Yeah, it's the DILTS pyramid. Yeah. So if you see, even if it is at the level of, say, for example, environment, for me, environment is not just about what is next to that guy. Environment could also signify a system that exists. It could exist, it could mean a certain set
The
of
context.
context.
There.
Right. Yeah. Right. And the context is very critical. So in order to influence the environment, identity could play a very, very important role. Right? How do we know? So while these are useful ways of looking at it, like Aishwarya, you very correctly said, we should not bring in our own judgment and value system. Oh, this is just a shift in behavior. But in order to make this shift in behavior, probably that is something that has been the immunity to change. How do we know? Right? Now that is where it is very important for us to remain, free of this, free of our own anchors, our own biases. Right? And this is what I am again saying. If probably, as a very experienced coach, I have this entire, the entire band to offer to my client. Where do you want to go? You tell me. Right? And that is the kind of change that we might want them to see. Whether it is at the level of capability, whether it is level of identity. Because you see, change in the level of identity cannot be sustained unless there is a remarkable behavior to be had. Right? It will result in some kind of a change in behavior. Right? And change in behavior will only happen when the environment is also in many ways helpful to develop those skills. And that cannot happen without a singular sense of purpose or mission. So, some of these hierarchies tend to dissolve. And this dissolving thing is happening in 8.7. That is the key word here, integrate. Integrate learning. Right? One of the things that I have seen is, and this from my own experience of being an internal coach for almost a decade, and and designing learning experiences for people, not just from a coaching standpoint, but from a talent management or a L&D stand or a learning partner standpoint, has been the 70-20-10. Right? And I feel this still holds good, because if we can help the client appreciate that they should be able to filter their learning goal through the prism of making a change in the real world, and not just by talking to a coach or by doing a course or by reading a book, but by practicing it in the real world, by making a paint, by doing something tangible, right? And creating for themselves a set of challenging experiences, taking up those challenges, then learning becomes a continuous effort. And this 70 plays a huge role in integrating. Right? So I feel that it could be a old haggard tool which has been in play for a few decades now. But I strongly feel that if there is a way to create for the client, or ask the client to create for themselves, what is it that they're going to do to make an impact right on the job, or right in their life, or in the way they live, that will help us to integrate it to the way they become. And this is where the criticality of the 70 lies, right? And this will remain still a very interesting model to kind of help the client make the learning their own, and learning as a process rather than as an event. Right? So these are my quick submissions. I invite your thoughts. Right.
This reminds me of Cobb learning cycle.
Yeah, it does. It does.
So yeah, looking at the conceptual understanding to experiential,
Yeah.
Understanding to moving toward abstract reasoning, all of that together to ensure that, the learning is a full circle.
And for me, this is, like one of my mentors used to say, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? This is where it becomes my own learning, my learning. It becomes not somebody else's journey. This is where I can see shifts happening, right? From, knowing to doing to being. This is the place where the game really gets played out. And I'm not saying that this is exactly what ICF is trying to do, but there is a certain sense behind why ICF is bringing in 8.7. Yes, Kingshuk, your question, please, or your observation.
Yeah, thank you, Ravi. My question is, on that earlier part which Aishwarya spoke about, how do we decide which is transactional, which is transformational?
Mm.
So from a scoring point of view, would advice be transformational or transactional? How would the scorer see it?
Scorer, I mean, who?
I mean, the person who's rating your recording.
Oh, acha. Oh, from that point. See, yeah, that is and I would advise, I would invite you to look at the ICF recording or the ICF dispatch on YouTube on this particular competency. And they have clearly said that they are looking at advice in a dimmer light, right? As a pitfall to probably seeking the client to design their own experience, right? And there's a question to which they answer, and I can give you the link to the recording here in the chat in a moment, Kingshuk. You can take a look at it, right? And there's a very clear distinction. They say that many coaches get into the pitfall of designing by themselves and prescribing it to the client.
Yeah.
What that learning, what should they do in the interim period between, say, conversation 2 and conversation 3, right? So if they do that, it is seen as a downer rather than an upside.
So these ICF dispatches, they come regularly, is it?
They come regularly. Anytime there is a change in the verbiage, the YouTube, on the YouTube, ICF YouTube channel, they start giving out explanations of this. And this is also come this time. Allow me to share this with you, right? Just give me a moment. I'll just share this with you. Right. I thought of including that recording in my own conversation today, but just a minute. Okay. Just a second. Yes, this is the one. Let me share the link with you. You can take a look at it, and I'm sharing the link here on the chat window. Yeah. Okay. So this is where it is. There is also another document that I might want to help you with, a document that I've kind of found useful to use. Just let me see if I can. Have you made me the host? It is not allowing me to share here, but I can. Right, there you go. Please download this document. This will give you a sense of what I mean by some of the 70-20-10 stuff, right? It's just a list of various things that can be done. Again, with the caveat that you don't start prescribing it. But as a coach, you have these resources under your belt. You feel confident that you know what could be done in these areas. Some of these are pre-designed activities, right? And if your client asks you to, give some thought-provoking examples, you may pull out some from here, right? So this could also be of use to you. Okay.
Sure. Thank you, Ravi. Thank you.
Right. What are your observations? What are your key takeaways from this conversation? Just have a few minutes to go, and probably we are already over time. I think it's 1 hour now. So let's, first of all, thank you for coming and attending.
My pleasure. Thank you for the session. I joined late. Thank you for the session.
Thank you so much, Ravi. I think one of my key takeaways is really to, to demystify the word growth
Yes.
itself, and to, look at it from what really growth, what does growth really mean? So thank you so much for initiating that thought, and hoping to take that forward to my own learning.
Yes. And thank you so much. I resonate that, Aishwarya, because as I was reading through it, whose growth? I mean, what am I trying to do? Oh, we should be talking only about this, about transformation, about a higher form of being, all of that kite flying kind of thought that comes into my mind. And I'm like, okay, what if the client wants to, like Nida said, remain there? This is my story. I'm just foisting it on the client.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think I would kind of second exactly what Aishwarya said she'd like to take away. I'm taking that away too. And keeping it within the ambit of autonomy, which reminds you to receive and be okay with exploration that is acceptable to the client. Else be fine with it, because I think, the pivot of your entire conversation and what I'm also taking away is around the importance of growth meaning different things for different people.
Absolutely.
And your own lens can always pose a risk of seeing it differently. So I think to me that's the most powerful when you look at, and I think also ease, because a lot of times I found myself just saying it's all right to be easy if that is exactly where the client sees their own journey, you know. So I would actually qualify that. If we are in an engagement which is an ongoing journey for the individual, then I would think it is natural to look at growth and how it moves and the shifts it creates for the individual through that journey, because then it's a more long drawn out process. Sometimes it's not just the journey that you're looking at, you're also looking at an individual who reaches out to you to declutter, if that is the way you would simplify it, right? Say,
Sure.
like to talk this through with you and declutter, and that decluttering exercise has at times concluded in very deep realizations for the individual. And at the same time, like the experience I shared with you, to say, I'm good where I am. So I think it's really just about being able to probably in that capacity surrender to the sanctity of the process, if I would put it that way.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, yeah. The agency back to the client.
Back to the client, absolutely.
Mm. 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 Right. I'm aware Indrani has a sore throat, and Deepti, any comments from you? Shweta, Kangshuk, any comments from you as we end?
Yeah, I joined late, so I apologize for that. And in fact, it was my miss. But I came in the point where you were talking about transactional versus transformational, and I'm just taking the level 1 right now, and just barely begun. But I was resonating with it so deeply, Dr. Ravi, that in my first few sessions that I sat, and I was just feeling a lot of urge inside of me to just sort of decide for the client, and so this was making so much sense that, while transformational seems the goal, because I was also very agitated when the sessions ended, and I really wanted, you know, whatever little transformation that should have happened from my side is what I was like, even as I'm speaking, I'm using the word should. So I think hearing today your session, whatever little that I heard, just helped me validate this, feeling. So I now like am just going to think deeper into this, Dr. Ravi. So really, thank you so much for this. And also, I think that pyramid that you shared,
Build
like
pyramid.
how different combinations can come in that. If you look at the client's perspective, say if I'm the client, like how it helps when I am the in charge and in the driving seat, and that's the whole purpose of coaching. So yes, thank you so much. You validated a lot of these learnings. Unless you really experience them, you are not going to learn. So that 70-20-10% that you said, also experiential, makes sense, an adult learning principle also. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you, Kingshuk. Thank you, Team Abudaya, for affording this time to us.
Thank you
If you
very
want to
much.
speak anything, Shweta, I saw you coming off mute.
Yeah, I was just saying it was a wonderful session. Thank you so much. And I could resonate with Deepti. I'm also in ACC level. So this transaction and transformational part was really insightful. And it's such a relief for me. I'm taking that pressure off now, because it oscillates between transactional and transformational. So that was a very, very insightful for me. Thank you so much.
Right. So that is the idea, right? I mean, how are we, be in the moment and see wherever the client wants to flow, and we flow with the client, right? We are the container at best, and they help us to do it. So many metaphors can come through, but I'm glad that you guys, both of you are feeling depressurized, if I may use that word, right?
And the acknowledgement part that you shared beautifully, that it's not only about the celebrating that win, but also
Yeah.
making them realizes that mistakes and the barriers that comes the way.
Or the lack of progress, or the speed of progress. How would they like it to be? How
Yeah,
do you
that's
think,
amazing.
checking on their comfort level of how fast or how slow they are moving, right? And what are the forces that are kind of coming in? Because all of those kind of play in to a client making a progress. So at the end of the day, as young coaches, one of the things that I often say is, it's the client who's paying you, right? So it's important to not just keep them happy, but partner with them in the truest sense, in the most honest sense you can.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for your time, and I hope we will have many more such conversations and can go forward. Right. I'm looking forward to these. Right.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank
Ravi.
you.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you so
Thank you very
much.
much.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Shall we close the meeting?